Hey, sup peeps! Welcome to Bio 110 Laboratory, and today we will be discussing shit. What were we supposed to discuss? Hey everybody, welcome to Bio 110 Laboratory, and we will be discussing symbiotic relationships as part of your ecology unit. Particularly, this experiment will be on the legume-rhizobium interaction. Before you head on to your experiment, let's have a quick review of what you will be encountering as a whole, like the main theme of the experiment, and that is symbiosis or symbiotic relationships. It's when two different species coexist. Among these relationships, you may be most familiar with the first three that we have on this list, which is mutualism, parasitism, and commensalism. Mutualism, it's like the win-win situation. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Parasitism is when one species benefits while the other one doesn't benefit from the relationship.
Moocher, freeloader, user-friendly. Friendly siya sa'yo kasi user siya. Kunyari yung kaklase mo na hiram ng gamit kasi wala siyang dalang sarili niyang gamit. Diba parasite yung tawag natin sa mga ganun?
Commensalism is when one species benefits while the other doesn't necessarily gain anything from it nor lose anything. Wala lang. I don't care if you're there. Competition is a relationship where two different species are going for the same exact resource. Both different species are negatively affected because it causes stress on both of them. Kailangan maunahan ko yung isa. Predation is a relationship where one species benefits and the other one is negatively affected. The main difference with parasitism is that for predation, one species will eat the other species. So obviously the negative effect for the other species is that they die. But for parasitism, the species that is actually benefiting from the relationship can only really benefit if it keeps the other species alive. If the other species dies, more often than not, the one that's positively benefiting from the relationship will have to find another species to mooch off of, which is just really the worst. Neutralism. It's a relationship where both parties just don't give a shit about each other. They don't really affect each other in any positive or negative way. Do whatever the fuck you want. I don't fucking care. Commensalism is a relationship where one is not necessarily affected positively or negatively. It's like, whatever. But the other species is negatively affected. So let's see if you've learned anything from that very, very quick, kind of weird, funky discussion. Now, I'm going to give you a bunch of pictures with maybe one or two organisms in them, and then you're going to figure out what their relationship status is. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. Ooh. One is a baby python, and the other one is also a relatively juvenile rat. Damn, that's pretty sick. Alright, so what relationship do you think they have? I mean, it's very, very obvious. This relationship is predation. Ta-da. Let's move on to the next one. This is Amphiprion ocellaris, or the false... I forgot the common name. Oh my goodness, I suck at common names. False clown anemone. False clown anemone fish. So what relationship do you think they have right there with the anemone? This is an example of a mutualistic relationship. The false clown anemone fish is actually a very, very poor swimmer. It doesn't really get to swim very fast and very far. The main thing that it does to evade predators is to live next to, or within the range of a stinging anemone. But now, how does the anemone benefit from having the fish there? The fish eat stuff, and so some of the food bits that get there sometimes would fall inside the anemone's, grasp. When the fish constantly swim, of course, they kind of move their fins around. That creates like a water current in that immediate vicinity. It sort of helps with a lot of food particles that could be floating around and bringing it to the anemone. Okay, so what is this? The brown bits that you're gonna see there, those are boulder coral. The ones that kind of look like really colorful lips, like the blue lips, those are actually boring clams. So there's nothing really interesting about them. Yes, they are boring clams in that they bore through a substrate. What relationship do you think these guys have? It could be a mutualistic relationship. Again, corals have stinging cells, so in a way the clam is somehow protected by the coral. The coral benefits, of course, with the waste products of the clam. They sort of get to eat that. It could also be competition, but definitely not predation. It could also be neutralism if we find that both parties are really just meh. Or it could be amensalism, where the boring clam is kind of like, okay, yeah, no problem. But the coral's like, duh, what are you doing here? Kind of thing. We have here a Bronchocela chrysotellus. So this is a green, I forgot the common name.
How dare you!
It is on a philodendron leaf. This philodendron is a crawling plant. It crawls along the trunks of trees, and this lizard is on that leaf. So what relationship do you think these guys have? In this relationship, you'll notice that the plant doesn't really directly benefit from having the lizard there, in the same way that the lizard is just kind of chilling on the plant, not really eating it or anything. Their relationship is just the very obvious thing that's in the picture. It's most likely just neutralism. You may argue that we do know that the leaves function to capture sunlight. If the lizard is on the leaf, it's blocking that area that could have captured sunlight. So the lizard isn't really affected by that, but the plant is. So the relationship can also be amensalism at some point. Or you could say that the plant isn't really affected by the whole thing, but the lizard benefits by having some sort of camouflage and some sort of habitat. The relationship could also be commensalism. Daming pwedeng sagot. Depende kasi. It really depends on how you really analyze the relationship. Why is it important to learn about symbiotic relationships? When we study ecology, at least in the classroom, we kind of just say, okay, this is species A and this is species B. And then you're like, what kind of relationship do they have? But the reality of the matter is, it's not just them per se, like species A and species B, but what about the relationship of species B to species C? And what about the relationship of species C to species A? And what about the relationship of species B and C in relation to species A? Or what about the relationship of species A and B compared to C?
No! God, please, no!
So the nature of relationships, it's very messy. So if we, again, look at the Tai Chi or the yin-yang symbol, that really best encapsulates what nature is all about. It's very dynamic, it always changes, and it's the same thing with relationships. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoy your experiment. A pretty simple case study. First and foremost, you'll have to look at a legume. Bean family, peas, chicharo, sitaw, bataw, patani, those kinds of plants, they sort of have this friendship with the rhizobium organisms in the soil. Together, they have this kind of teamwork going on where the plant provides a bit of the sugars and the rhizobium provides nitrogen. You'll see later in the case study that something happens elsewhere and it's somehow related to the story that happens in the first part. So what is going on? This is where we see that it's not as straightforward as you think. Try again to really think about not just what's happening between species A and species B. The relationship that is just very apparent between two organisms can actually just spill over to wherever. All right, see you guys soon, and I hope you guys have fun with your experiment. Bye-bye.